Okay, I think we should let people in, okay? We good to go?
I think it would be better to have a pass, no pass. That's why they're offering it to students and they changed it.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We're excited you're here. Thanks everyone for coming. We're so excited that you're here. Welcome to day 2 of the California Dream Act Bootcamp. It's so exciting to have you back. I hope that you all had a great week and we're able to just be thinking about, among all of the other amazing things that you're doing, about some of the lessons that you've learned, and you've brought some great questions back to us for today. We're going to be working together from 10 to 12 today. We have so much amazing stuff in store for you. We are hoping right now, if you could, please go ahead and change your name on Zoom. We wanted to be able to, oops, and I need to do that myself. Change your name on Zoom. And actually what we're asking is for you to put whether you are put your number based on your affiliation. Are you a financial aid person? Are you an undocumented student support person, admissions, high school, or other? So I'm going to go ahead and change my name. I would put 5 because I'm from a community-based organization. And then so you could see the rest of my affiliation, I'm going to just put my first name and Immigrants Rising as my organization. This way, when we're talking together, and we're going to be doing some breakout rooms later, or people are asking questions, we have an idea of the perspective that they're coming from. So please, if you could, go ahead and change your name and affiliation so that it'll actually would say where you're coming from. And we're just going to give people a minute or 2 more to come in. Welcome everyone. And we have a great day in store for you today. A lot of financial aid people in the house. Definitely have some undocumented student support peeps, some admissions peeps, and people from nonprofit organizations as well. If you haven't changed your name yet, please just go ahead and do so. We're really excited that all of you are here. This is the second session of the California Dream Act Bootcamp, sponsored by Immigrants Rising and supported by the amazing California Student Aid Commission. So as this picture shows, really, like, we are the change, and we're working to be the change that we want to see in the world. We are the ones that we've been waiting for, and together we are building institutional change. And as so many amazing undocumented young people that I know, they're just got the undocu hustle going, and we, as both educators that are supporting them, or as amazing undocumented educators as well, we are really doing that undocu hustle, right? To kind of keep that hustle flowing, make sure that people can get the money that they need. So thank you so much to everybody for being here today. I'm going to go ahead and get us started. We have over 100 and almost 120 people here today. Thank you so much. We're hopeful that all of you were here at the first session, and we're going to be jumping in today to the second session right now. Yay. So our agenda for today, we're going to do some intros and welcomes. We're going to give some time too, and we're excited for you, for the campuses, to report back and let us know from the information that you got last week. How did that checklist come out for you? Did anybody get into that award status extracts? We're going to do some quick reminders and then really talk about the steps and the promising practices to building more undocu-friendly financial aid offices. So we're all committed to that, and I'm so excited that we're all here today to work on those pieces. We'll be having a short break approximately around 11 o'clock. It kind of depends on the flow, but we will have a short break. And then you're going to be able to hear from some amazing colleagues and actually just get to talk to them and get some of those promising practices in action. Like, sure, we're talking about it in theory here on the webinar. How did it work at somebody's campus? We'll have some time for Q&A at the end, and then we're going to do an evaluation and then just have some next steps and closing. So thank you so much to everybody for being here. Go ahead, please, and change your name if you haven't yet so that we can see where people are from. But I love seeing that we have people from all across the spectrum, from financial aid, admissions, high schools as well, and undocumented student support peeps. My name is Nancy Chiditis, and I'm the Director of Higher Education at Immigrants Rising. I worked for about 8.5 years as a financial aid counselor at San Francisco State University, and just had no idea at the time in which I was switched into the financial aid office, the amazing opportunity that learning financial aid from the inside has provided me to be able to support undocumented students. And I am here with I also worked as an undocumented student advisor. And so with some of that knowledge, I've gone to try to build resources and information that make sure that students can get all financial aid for which they're eligible. And together with my colleague, Madeline Villanueva, as well as other colleagues at Immigrants Rising, we have just worked to try to be able to make sure that students get all financial aid they're eligible and that educators and students have the resources that they need. So you'll be hearing from Madeline in a minute. But I'm also really excited that we have Javier Arguello as well as John Waldrop joining us from the California Student Aid Commission. They, as you know, are the organization that is in charge of processing the California Dream Act applications. And we are just beyond lucky that they have taken their time out of their really busy schedules to participate in this boot camp with us and bring the knowledge that they have today. So in terms of just quick welcoming, I know that we have people from all over the state. I'm hoping that you could just say your name, your position, and your campus. Just throw that in the chat so we can just kind of get a sense of like who's here, what you guys are up to, and just let us know where people are zooming in from. So you can go ahead and put that into the chat. Please introduce yourselves. We have people from Cypress College. That's exciting to see. Gavilan College, American River. So definitely representing from the community colleges, Consumnes, Gavilan as well, Taft, CSU San Marcos, Dominican. Wow, just lots of people. Humboldt. We have people from San Diego City College. So this is exciting. There's people, Bakersfield College. I can't even keep up. High schools, Dominican. Butte is here. So thank you so much, everyone. It's really exciting to see the people that are signing in from across the state to make sure that they can learn more about increasing California Dream Act awards at California colleges and universities. So thanks so much to everybody. We're really excited that you're here. And the goals for today. So today we really want to build on some of the knowledge that we had from that first session last week, where we kind of created a common understanding, got some ideas about the Dream Act award status as it is now, and really begin to brainstorm specific tactics that we can use to increase award rates on your campus. And also looking to see what are some of the departmental practices that can increase award rates and paid rates for eligible students. So, and then the last part is, and I'm so excited about this as well, is to connect with other campuses, to learn about how they're using their promising practices to reduce barriers for undocumented students in receiving financial aid. I remember when I first became a financial aid counselor, actually before I became a financial aid counselor, I was really just focused on get your application in, not really understanding that there was a whole maze of things that people needed to do behind the scenes. So we're going to break out some of those pieces today and then really think about some of these amazing, promising practices. So now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Madeline Villanueva, and she's going to do some of the report back. And we want to hear from you how, what kind of took place this week.
Thank you, Nancy. So welcome again, everyone. Feel free to keep introducing yourself in the chat if you didn't get a chance to. But as you all, I'm hoping that most folks here were the ones who came to our first session last Thursday. And as you remember, we did assign 2 pieces of homework. One of them, if we go to the next slide, is looking at folks' financial aid website and taking our checklist from our strengthening campus websites for undocumented students to see if there's anything on there that could help kind of strengthen your information online so that undocumented students are able to learn more about their financial aid options. And so just as a quick recap, our guide does include a financial aid webpage portion, and it does list out the different key elements and resources that are very important to have around the California Dream Act so that students are getting all the information that they need just from visiting your webpage, right? And so that includes things like defining the California Dream Act, what are the eligibility requirements, what does it get you, and what is the process of applying. And we also shared a couple of resources last week, including Immigrants Rising's checklist on California Dream Act and Cal Grant, our information about Fafsa versus Dream, and our scholarship list that would be good to include on your website, along with any specific campus resources and contact information that you have. And we just threw it in the chat. Hopefully this is, again, not the first time you're seeing this and you took the whole of last week and this week, right, to look at this checklist and kind of go over your campus or your organization's website, right, to see if there is information about the California Dream Act on there. And so if we go to the next slide, I actually kind of want to hear a little bit about how that went for folks. And if you had time to do it. So I'm going to quickly launch this poll right now to get a sense of like what folks were able to find on their website. And then I also kind of have a Mentimeter that we'll do in a second to see what are your next steps to maybe improve your webpage or strengthen the information that's already on there. So I just launched the poll. You are able to check off as many pieces as you found on your website. And I'm going to wait until we have a good number of people who have participated before we see the results. Okay, so I see we're about close to 50% participation. Let's see if we can get more of that. Again, if you didn't get a chance to do this specific homework in the weeks, but since our last session, I do hope that you take a look at that checklist that we threw in the chat. And there is a guide that we'll also make sure to share with you all later, but it's available on our website on different ways to strengthen your webpage for undocumented students. I'll just wait to see if I can get a couple more folks. Okay, so maybe this is, oh, there's a couple more coming in. Again, you're able to check off as many of the elements that you found on your website. Okay, I think this is maybe a good percentage of participation. So I'm just going to end the poll and then showing my results. I'm hoping that it's showing up right. Okay. Yeah, so as we can see here, we did get, not everybody participated, but a good number of folks participated, right? And it does look like a majority of folks here were able to find California Dream Act information on their web pages already. There's also a lot of information around scholarships. We didn't get to talk that much about that last session, but that is an important financial aid resource that's to include for undocumented students, so that's on there. And then there's also a lot of campus-specific California Dream Act resources. And it looks like there is not as much Immigrants Rising California Dream Act resources. So I do encourage folks to take a look at our previous session, right, on some of the resources we pulled out that folks can include on our website. And this guide that we'll throw in the chat later too can show a little bit more of that. And so with that too, I do think that there's always room for improvement, right, in presenting information on folks' website, on campus's website, for example. And so I did want to ask folks to kind of share too, based on what you saw on the checklist and what is currently on people's websites, what are some of your next steps in strengthening your financial aid website? If you're not working with a financial aid department specifically, maybe what are some next steps you have in strengthening your financial aid information online for undocumented students. And we'll throw that Mentimeter link again on the chat so that people, and I'll give people like maybe a minute or two again to write that out to see what are some of the next steps. Oh, let me see about, I see the comment about the website. It looks like it's working for me. So it might be a issue with your specific browser or something like that. I would try again later if it's not working right now. Then if we could show that Mentimeter.
Can you see it now, Madeline?
Yes, I can see it. Great. Okay. So it looks like just some of the things that are on there. Let's see. Yeah, so it looks like people are already thinking about, for example, like speaking to their designated person who runs their websites to make some improvements. Let's see, including more immigrants rising resources for definitions of certain terms. Definitions, I think, is a thing that comes up a couple of times for here. More detailed information about the California Dream Act. Include more helpful links, some definitions around DACA versus US citizens and what that means for financial aid, contact information for students. Let's see. Great. Let's see if a couple more come in. I see there's also, yeah, this is a great idea too. If your campus does offer this, would like to add more outside resources for California Dream Act students, particularly grad students, right? Since some of them are, or they're able to get that aid at CSUs, for example. Let's see if there's a couple more that comes in. The link to the Mentimeters on the chat, code 9210-1626. Yeah, so it looks like a couple of folks are naming immigrants rising resources. So we saw that that was not included yet in campuses or organizations' website, right? So how could some of those really helpful resources help a little and be added more in web pages? So I'm also curious if anybody is actually willing to share something that they put on here, or just the process for like looking at their online information, right? What they found, kind of what are they thinking about doing for next steps. And you should be able to unmute yourself and just share with us, or put it in the chat too. Who's brave enough to kind of share with us today?
We'd love to hear from you.
One thing, this is Mary Manning. One thing I feel is that it's just all the information is so wordy. I mean, we put all this stuff on there because we figure we have to tell them everything. But most of it is like very hard to understand, and it's hard to make it simpler. And I don't want to I'd say that it needs to be dumbed down. It's just the language is so not your normal everyday words, you know. One thing I did want to ask other colleges is how much of your information do you provide in another language?
Yeah.
Because even us as a Hispanic serving institution, we have very little of our printed information in Spanish.
Right.
And I do know that, you know, we've found that most of the college students, or most students coming from high school, speak English. But I think people would be older students, people would be more comfortable if they could get that information in their own language. And just wondering how other colleges handle that.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mary. Yeah. If folks want to write down in the chat about any other languages they provide for their California Dream Act information, feel free to put that, and then maybe Mary can reach out to you afterwards. But I think that's a really great point, right? Like a lot of the information that can come around the Dream Act could be very wordy, and I think it makes a lot of sense for like financial aid or like undocumented student support or people who do this work on a regular basis. But again, thinking about like students and where they're at in their knowledge about the Dream Act, what actually is the most, how could you kind of like present the information so that you're meeting them at their understanding in their level too. Great, and then I see there's a couple of campuses that actually do include Spanish information on their website, so maybe that's folks to reach out to. And then I see there's also a comment from Martha from Cuesta College, who has PDF forms of the Dream application on their website. And they also include information, and they include resources for undocumented students, including scholarships. So I think that's also a really great thing to include too, because unfortunately, right, there's also some students, undocumented students, who still don't qualify for the California Dream Act yet, and what other resources would also be available for them. Anybody else would like to share? Maybe we'll have one more person.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Hi, this is Michelle Bowen from the Financial Aid Office at Long Beach City College. On our financial aid homepage, although we do not have the extent of the Dream Act information, we have the basics, but we do also have a Dream Services resources. It's a separate office or a separate department at our college. So we have general information, the basics of our Dream Act, and we have that reference to our Dream Services department, so they can contact that specific department and get more detailed information. But I do think that between our Dream Services and our financial aid office, we probably could do a little more collaboration stuff to make sure we have, you know, the most valuable information and have it be as easily accessible to our students as possible.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much, Michelle. I think that's a good point, right? Like, I think we're going to be talking a little bit more about that later on, departmental collaborations. How is your, if there is an undocumented student program in your campus, how is that working with financial aid to make sure that this information is being conveyed accurately and in the best way to students as possible? I do think that it's great to have California Dream Act information basically everywhere. So that does include financial aid, the undocumented student programs, if there is one, outreach, for example, just because we don't know where students are going to land. So let's like make it as accessible as possible and having it in as many places as possible. So thank you.
Yes, and particularly the immigrant rising stuff. I'm not sure if I see that on their website because I didn't get a chance to look at it fully, but we definitely love to have that on both of our websites. It's an amazing program. So thank you guys for that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and I see there's a couple more comments on the chat. Some people are thinking more about translation for the resources that they provide. Catherine, when she was working at CCSF, shared that they had the goal of providing resources in Mandarin and Tagalog since the API community was the second largest undocumented student population. So I think that's a really great point too, right? Like looking at your campus demographics, what is the most, what is the largest group maybe, and what are their language needs, and how can some of your resources possibly even be translated to meet those language needs? And then let me just look through a couple more of these comments. Great, so Harmony from Healing Hands Trade School shared that they're adding some of this information for the first time on their website. So that's really good. And then there's a couple of questions about maybe other specific things. And so, great. I'm gonna kind of start wrapping it up here, but again, thank you all for hopefully looking at your financial aid or other relevant websites to see what kind of information is there for around the California Dream Act. If you did not get the chance to do that, please do it after this boot camp and think about who do you need to talk to on your campus to kind of strengthen that information, make sure it is in as many different places that undocumented students may visit on your campus website. And then I will just quickly share here, if you also did not get a chance to look at it last time, we do have this guide around strengthening campus websites for both financial aid and undocumented student programs and admissions that could help kind of serve what your next steps are. And so I'm going to pass it over to Javier, I believe, to talk about the award status extracts.
All right, good morning, everyone. So last week when we last met, we introduced the topic of the award status extract. So as I mentioned last week during the training, it is one of those tools that is, oh, looks like my daughter put a little sticker on my, on my shirt. So that is one of the tools that, that is very underutilized. But it is one of those tools that can increase the paid rates. I know that's kind of the topic of conversation during this training here. It is a tool that can definitely, if used properly, can increase paid rates. So just kind of wanted to get a temperature check to find out if anyone did end up trying out the award status extract. Now, because it is a process that runs over the weekend, it obviously you would have needed to do that like right after the training and submit it. And so because this is can be something new, it could be a new process that you're instituting, or you probably never heard of it before. If you didn't get a chance to do it last week, give it a shot here coming up in the next few weeks if you didn't get to do it prior to today's training. And the reason why I mentioned that is because, and this part here doesn't necessarily apply so much for the community colleges per se, but we are going to be doing a competitive award recycle. So the Cal Grant Awards under the competitive cycle, we are planning on withdrawing those here in a few weeks. So we're actually going to be sending out a communication on that to the folks in the field, kind of giving you an idea or a heads up on when we plan on doing that. So that's coming down the pipeline here in just a few weeks. After we run that recycle, normally what we do at Csac is that we then re-award new competitive award students, right? That is a perfect time to then bring in the award status extract. If you haven't used it before, instituting it at that particular time, anytime we're making new awards, the competitive recycle being kind of one of those times where you can apply this, that would be the next opportunity to kind of go in there and play around with the award status extract. And again, what that is, for those of you who weren't here last week, the award status extract, really what it is, it allows schools to identify students that are currently not on your Cal Grant rosters. So it's a two-step process where you're providing to us an enrollment file with all of your enrolled students at your school. We then process that over the weekend, and then we provide the school with two different files, one that has Cal Grant awarded students, the other one that has students that were not awarded a Cal Grant. You then use the file that has the Cal Grant awarded students to then create a school change upload file to us. Once you do that, we will then place students onto your roster. So let me take a quick look here at the chat just to kind of find out any feedback or if anyone tried it. Okay. I'll say Tracy, yep, over at Sac State, looks like, yep, you all use it every year. And then Brittany, looks like you tried it out, but it says you don't have any report. That could be that could be a result of well, we're going to need to take a look. There's a couple different ways why it wouldn't show that that you had a report. The very first thing to check is to make sure that the enrollment file is uploaded specifically under the file upload screen in web grants for the award status extract. If you upload it anywhere else, it won't produce that file. So there's a particular place in web grants under the file upload section where you have to upload your enrollment file, and it really only needs to go there in order for us to provide that file. But if you needed more help, or if let's take a look at it, just give us a call over at school support. We can actually go in there and walk you through that process to find out maybe what happened. And Tracy, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Hopefully you don't mind. Can you talk a little bit about perhaps, so you say you do it every year. Is there a particular time of year that you run it over at Sac State? Any headaches that you get from the award status extract? Any hiccups that you may want to share with others that maybe haven't done the award status extract before?
Hey, Javier. So this is Tracy. So when I say we use it every year, we actually do it every week. We send it along with our change file every Friday. And we start the year, once the Cal Grant roster comes out, we start sending our award status extract. So we'll send Csac a list of student socials who are either intent to enroll here at Sacramento State or are actively enrolled here. And in doing so, we get award status extract files back from Csac the following week. So we'll have two files. One file will say, out of the socials you sent us, here are the students who are awarded. Out of those that you sent us, here are the students who are not awarded. So then we take the awarded file and we use those socials to do school changes. So in that sense, we're able to capture students who may be on a Cal Grant roster, but have a different school listed. So it allows us to get more accurate results before we start packaging. And we're able to do school changes for students who may not have done it on their own. So we continue doing that every week up through usually June 30th or so for the current year, once Csac stops recycling and awarding. And that way we're just capturing as many students as possible. So I hope I explained that correctly. I don't physically do it, but you know, I get the notifications and I kind of understand the process.
Yeah, no, and thank you for that, Tracy, because the way you described it just now is pretty much the best practice, right? Like that is like what schools kind of the ideal situation, right? A school to be doing it as often as you all do every week. Yeah, no, that is definitely a best practice. The more you run the extract, because again, you know, schools have to also understand that, especially for our entitlement programs, those entitlement programs, you know, we're continuously running those. So you could have students that may not have appeared on your rosters, you know, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, last month. So the more often you run that award status extract, the more accurate your rosters are going to be. And so you run it all the way until June, which is perfect, because normally towards the end of the AY, that's when we normally stop making awards, right? In preparation for the year-end reconciliation that we have, that normally runs in September. Normally we stop making awards sometime in like, you know, June, July, August, kind of somewhere in there in the summertime. So the more often you run it beforehand, yeah, the more you're going to assure yourself that all the kiddos that were eligible for a Cal Grant were identified and paid way before final year recon, which actually, if you do that, the award status extract, if you do it often, it creates less headaches for you, less work for the school to try to scramble at the end of the year and try to see, you know, did I miss any students? So it definitely helps with making sure that you're also timely for year-end reconciliation as well. Any other thoughts or any other comments about the award status extract?
We did get a question, Javier, that was saying, like, they're not a financial aid person. So what is the question that they should go to their financial aid office with?
Yeah, so really for that one there, you know, best course of action is just to notify them or let them know that this process exists, that you learned about it, and having attended this workshop here. I believe we sent out the training on it last week. and just making them aware that this process exists. And if they have more questions on it, the best thing to do is just to have someone in the financial aid office. Namely, it's going to be your Cal Grant specialist. Have them give us a call over at school support. And we can kind of walk through and explain a little bit better as to what that process is, because it can be, a complicated process to kind of communicate, especially if it's the first time that you've ever heard of this process, and especially if you don't have a hand in running those extracts on a daily basis. So we just want to get the word out, make everyone aware that this tool does exist, and we would appreciate everyone that's attending here today to, if you don't specifically work in the financial aid office, a lot of times the word of mouth is the best tool. So hopefully you do have the training that we provided last week, and just kind of spreading the word, because that's really how we're going to get this tool to come more into light and have more people utilize it.
That's great advice. Thank you, Javier. Another question that came up was when we were hearing Tracy speak about it, she said, I sent the student's social security number to the in the roster, and then it came back. What would, like, I know for many students that have the Dream Act, they don't have a social security, and we might not have their Dream Act number yet. So how could that work specifically with this in that circumstance?
Yeah, so normally if a student doesn't have a Dream Act ID, they haven't submitted a Dream Act application. One, or they haven't added your school to the Dream Act application. So one of the two things have occurred. Normally, if a student does have a Dream Act ID, they have also submitted a Dream Act application. And really the only missing piece there would be for the student to have added your school. And hopefully we have determined that student to be eligible for the Cal Grant Award. For Dream Act IDs, and actually let me pull up the PowerPoint from last week. There's a specific spot on the actual Cal ISER file where you can extract the Dream Act ID. Let me give you the specific place where you can find it. So if you're looking at the Cal ISER file, it is going to be positions number 2 through 10. So on the Cal ISER file, which is a file that we produce to schools pretty much every week, anytime that there's Dream Act applications, positions 2 through 10, you can extract the 9-digit Dream Act ID from that Cal ISER file to identify those students as well. So all those students there, you're essentially, what you're doing with the Cal ISER file is you're importing that information into your financial aid management system. Once it's in your financial aid management system, you can extract that data to create your enrollment file. So it'll have students that have, the traditional 9-digit SSNs, but also because you're importing that Cal ISER file into your system, it'll also have the 9-digit Dream Act ID as well for you to create the enrollment file. And then the process just kind of goes from there.
That's super helpful. Thank you, Javier. Any last questions, anybody?
Yes, I have a question. Hi, Javier.
Hi.
So I have here at San Diego District, so financial aid asks the student to have either a social or ITIN in the system for them to disburse the payments. So wondering if, besides the social and the Dream Act ID number, they also can send, financial aid can send on the roster the ITIN numbers, and if that's, are all the colleges asking for those two, ITIN or social, to disburse the payment for Cal Grant?
Yeah, ITIN necessarily wouldn't work. So you'll want to use the Dream Act ID, especially for your Dream Act students. And the reason why is because the ITIN isn't on the Dream Act application per se. It's not one of those data elements that we will pull in and make awards off of. So in web grants, and a good example for that is when we award students a Cal Grant Award, we're awarding them and tying that award specifically only to the Dream Act ID. We're not tying it to like an ITIN, for example. It's specifically tied into, a traditional SSN, a social, or the 9-digit Dream Act ID when we make Cal Grant Awards. And it's really for that reason that an ITIN wouldn't work in those situations there. So it needs to be either tied to a traditional SSN or the Dream Act ID, either or.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, and again,
think-
if there's anyone that has any questions on this process here, again, because it is a very complicated process, especially if you haven't done this before, yeah, just give us a call over in school support and we can help you out from there.
Thank you, Javier. We'll just throw that number in the chat again.
Yeah.
And also just knowing that we are lucky that Javier is actually going to be hosting one of our workout groups, our breakout groups later this morning. And if you have some specific questions, you could follow up with Javier and in that session as well. But thank you so much. I think that this award extract file is something that is really important for all of us to kind of figure out how we can learn more about it and how we can make sure that our financial aid office is using those opportunities as well. So, okay, so let's see. Can you see my slides now? Okay, great. So I'm just going to do a quick reminders for those of us that were here last week, and for those not. This is really going to be just like a quick wham bam to be able to just kind of keep us all on the same page about this. And some of that really is the new deadline, right? There's a Cal Grant CADA application deadline. You heard straight from the Csac last week that has been postponed till April 1st due to the pandemic and the challenges that people had in being able to submit their Fafsa or their DREAM application. Students can be considered for Cal Grants and other Csac aid if they meet this deadline, April 1st, as opposed to the March 2nd. But it was also clarified last time that the GPA verification form is not included in this April 1st. That still should have been received by the March 2nd deadline. And if not, there's actually a process where people can appeal why they were not able to get their GPA in on time. So that's really exciting news. And I hope a lot of you have been using the different social media and text messages and emails to kind of let our students and prospective students and feeder schools know about this so that we can try to push up those numbers. Also, Javier mentioned these about talking to the contact and school support, and we've put those into the chat, but we want to remind you about the amazing resources that the Student Aid Commission has. You can call them as school support, you can email them as school support. They have websites both for themselves, for the California Dream Act, and the web grants for students. I myself know that a lot of students I was working with were not as familiar with the web grants for students, which is where they should be getting all of their information and keeping up to date with their schools and their Cal Grant and other aid. And then if you haven't signed up for the listserv, Madeline, if you could throw that into the chat just to make sure that people are staying up to date with Csac and their updates on the regular. I subscribe to it, and it keeps me really informed about what I need to know coming from the California Student Aid Commission. Also, always just remembering to say Fafsa or DREAM. I hope that between last week and this week, lots of you have now incorporated this new technique. So you're never just saying one or the other, you're saying them together so that people know that there's options. And encouraging individuals to really take a look at their California Dream Act application confirmation page. They can check to see if there's any errors that they need to correct. Is the parent signature there? Are the proper schools listed? So many times as a financial aid counselor, an undocumented student advisor, they'd be like, I can't have any aid, I don't have it. And when you'd actually go back to the confirmation page, there was errors listed that they needed to do that had maybe been there for way too much time, right? So have them looking at that right away and just putting that into your process. And then making sure that you're using this financial aid California Dream Act map to help students find their way out of the maze. We want students to go from applying to actually getting that money in their pocket. And this map can really help people know where are they caught within the process and who needs to do what to make sure that they get their aid. Oops, and that's where you can actually just download it on our file. Actually, since I'm there at Immigrants Rising, I do just want to give a quick shout out to just say that you can go to the resources, and then what I do is you can put in the keywords, but I find it the best to actually go to this overview of resources and then just scroll down. There's lots of entrepreneurship resources, but here are our higher education resources, in-state tuition, state-based financial aid in the California Dream Act, and more. But I think just again, the best way, go to resources, and then when you get to the resources, go to the overview. If you're not using the links that we are showing directly in the information that we're sharing on our files. And then remember the powerful role, our superpowers as financial aid counselors, or making friends in financial aid, right? And making friends with the Csac and the Cal Grant coordinator can be really helpful, because paying for college is really is the number one challenge that undocumented students are facing. And you as a financial aid counselor or hooking people up with a good financial aid peeps really can make a huge difference. And just knowing that attitude, knowledge, and willingness really help a lot in going a long way. And some of the favorite words that I like to say, if I don't know the answer, is I don't know, but let's find out together, right? We're not thinking that you're going to take all the information that you have today and just have it at the tip of your hands, but you know where you can go. You can go to Immigrants Rising, you can go to Csac's website, you can go to your financial aid or your undocumented student departments, admissions departments, and kind of find out together how you can make the pieces work for you. So I also just wanted to quickly remind us about understanding AB 540. We got this in the evaluations. A lot of people were saying, like, what's going on with AB 540? That's the difference between paying in-state tuition and out-of-state tuition. You can see the averages. The first line is the resident in-state fees, or somebody that actually has an affidavit that's been approved. The second line is the additional money per semester they'd be required to pay if they don't have an affidavit on file or don't meet the eligibility for AB 540. And what's really important in this area as well is that they do not meet eligibility for the California Dream Act aid. That aid cannot go out unless they actually have that information and the affidavit on file. So thinking about that, also just if you're wondering, being like, well, what is AB 540? I heard it got expanded. What's going on with that? I think it's really great to use our quick guide to SB 68. It talks about the specific eligibility requirements, as well as for attendance, as well as eligibility requirements for your degree. And it expanded it beyond 3 years of high school to include adult school and California community colleges. And then just remembering that the California Dream Act does require AB 540 to be in place. So making sure that you're connecting with admissions. And like, who is your contact, right? We only have a few peeps from admissions today, but who is your financial aid and admissions triangle that you can form to make sure that students are getting the information that they need? And if you're like, I really want to know a little bit more about AB 540, Madeline, my amazing colleague, and Maritza Quiroz did a great webinar yesterday about increasing access to AB 540. They have launched their updated in-state tuition tool. There's an AB 540 attendance worksheet. There's lots of testimonials, and so there's a link to the video which we will send out here. So if you're like, well, I want to know more, we're also going to be having some AB 540 SB 68 learning labs in April, so you can definitely check that out if you'd like to as well.
Nancy, it looks like we have somebody whose hand is raised.
Who's what?
Whose hand?
Oh, hands raised. Okay, thank you. Mary, you have a question?
Can DACA students who do not meet the AB 540 criteria be classified as California residents?
Students who do meet eligibility, like there's three main areas in terms of being residency. The first is legal presence. So students who have DACA do have the legal presence, so they'd be able to actually meet that legal presence. The second part would be like here for 366 days without leaving. And then the third part is sort of like that they're here and all of their, like that they don't have a house, or they're not really kind of just like popped in for a period of time, but they're here and they plan to stay, as well as financial independence. So yes, they can. And we actually have something on our website about California residency for tuition purposes, which explains that in a little bit more detail. That's
I'm just not sure where our admissions office goes first.
I'm sorry?
Where our admissions office goes first, or if they ask, you know, I'm not sure how they flush that out about giving DACA a California resident status and not AB 540. So I think I need to converse with them.
Yeah, I think that's important, right? And I think that if students only have DACA and don't have AB 540, then at least they can pay resident fees with DACA. But because the California Dream Act actually said that you need to meet the eligibility for AB 540, students who are coming in with DACA, but also meet AB 540 eligibility, should actually work to get their AB 540 status clarified so that they can then go ahead and receive state-based financial aid as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. That's a great question. So we are going to talk now just a little bit about some of the undocu-friendly, like how we can build undocu-friendly financial aid offices. I do have a lot of information here. We might not be able to get through all of it today, but we have a resource that we're going to be sharing with you as well. There's 4 main areas that I want to talk about, and we're going to tip on a little bit about residency at the end if we have time. The first part really is around identifying a point person for the California Dream Act application. It's really important that we've seen through working with colleges and universities to have one lead person as a financial aid counselor. They can develop a much stronger understanding. They can become aware of common issues, review and update departmental practices, right, to ensure that there's compliance with California state law and educational codes. So this is not just a lead financial aid counselor because we want to make sure that there's services for the student. That's really important. We also want to make sure that the campus is actually complying with what the law is. And so it's a compliance as well as an equity issue. By doing this, individuals are actually, students and departments are actually able to build more trust when they know that there's one person who's up to date, because I've talked to many students, and I'm sure you have as well, who say, I go to the admissions or I go to the financial aid office, and not everybody knows about AB 540 or the Dream Act. And then I'm kind of talking to them and giving them the information as opposed to receiving the information. This can also help produce roadblocks, because if students are like, they go and then they didn't get the information that they needed, it takes courage to come back and ask a second or a third time. So we want to try to reduce some of those roadblocks for students. So having one person who can be the lead is really helpful. It streamlines the process and it ensures that the information is accurate and up to date. This doesn't mean that that person is the only person in the whole financial aid office that knows about financial aid. They should be able to come and get information from anyone, but this is making sure that they are staying up to date on the laws. They know about the expansion of SB 68. They have their finger on the pulse kind of what's going on in terms of undocumented student support legislatively in California and what are the best practices to make that happen. So that's really one point that I think is so important, identifying a point person for the California Dream Act application. But that, as I was saying, we want to also make sure that there is departmental knowledge across the entire department, so that it's not just like that you can only talk to Nancy on Tuesdays at 2 o'clock. You should be able to come to talk to anybody and make sure that they have at least general line information about the California Dream Act, about AB 540, about FERPA, right? Being able to let students know that their information is protected through FERPA, through SB 54, that the information is for the school and for the California Student Aid Commission, and it's not being shared with outside sources. It would be great too if individuals and the financial aid department or the admissions department are also able to participate in undocumented trainings, so that they're not just getting the basics of the law, but they have some of the understanding and common challenges that undocumented students face. This really can benefit everybody at the university because it reduces misinformation. It really improves the credibility of the department, so that financial aid departments are seen as knowledgeable and helpful for all students, right? Because we do need to be serving all students in California, regardless of their immigration status. And I think that this departmental knowledge also is that even if students don't have AB 540 and can't get the Dream Act, there's scholarship aid that's available, right? And all of this together can really combine to help reduce equity gaps, so that there are more people getting the information that they need and streamlining the process through the department overall. So first part, making sure that there's a point person. Second part, ensuring that there's actually department-wide knowledge. And I think those areas are really key. And then another promising practice that I think is really important is award visibility and holds. So making sure that the potential award is visible, and making sure that students know that, okay, I have a financial aid award. I might need to do this or that to be able to get it in my hands. But making sure that if you put up the award, you can then actually put a hold to prevent that this aid never releases. That can either be done through conditional awards or negative service indicators. For financial aid, individuals that are working with students who are incoming students, this is a regular practice, right? They cannot get their financial aid released until they've actually been cleared by admissions. So it's a conditional award, it's a conditional admittance. It's kind of on that same line, right? That you would be able to give them a financial aid award if they're able to do X, Y, and Z. Like, for example, I know that there are some schools who do not show the student their financial aid award until their affidavit has actually been processed. But when you think about the timing of this, financial aid awards are usually coming out between May, it's March, April, May, sometimes in June if there's been some delay in getting the information needed. So if that's coming out in, like from March, and then the intent to register is in May, and the student still hasn't been able to get their affidavit processed until July, how will they know what kinds of financial aid they have available? So super important to be able to think about, and this was also true for students, there's no longer needed for the selective service, but other schools would not give a financial aid award until they had the selective service hold there. So how can we make sure that we are not letting aid release that should not get into the hands of students, but that we also are providing some motivation so that students see the possible aid that's available and they know what steps are needed to take. We've also worked with schools. When I worked at San Francisco State, we used to actually just say, here's your award, and then actually start to try to put on the portal, there needs to be an AB 540 affidavit, or has the AB 540 affidavit been received by the school, so that we're working together to make sure that students see the aid that's available and know that if they do the proper steps, they can get that money to be able to pay for their tuition and or other costs based on the award that is given. Same with EOP, right? A lot of EOP awards are not given until the affidavit has been approved, but how could you put that provisionally on there and then hold out, put that hold on that award until the affidavit successfully gets processed later in the summer, or if we're pushing this back in December and January, if we're talking about a spring admit. And then another promising practice, which I think is really important, is for us to be thinking about more of this cross-departmental collaboration. I used to always say, make a friend in financial aid. You always have one when I do a presentation, but who are your hookups in financial aid? Who are your hookups in the admissions department? Who are your hookups with undocumented student personnel, EOP, the bursar, right? But really just thinking about how can you build practices and working relationships, or actually look towards building a cross-departmental team that can review the current policies and procedures that you have. When I was first working in the California Dream Act came through, the system had been built on a social security number so that when they would say like, oh, well, who's going to do a fee deferment? They just use that based on the Fafsa. And it took a couple of cycles for us to be like, oh, actually, you need to actually run for the Fafsa and for the California Dream Act application. But that was a policy that was in place that had always been there, right? And it just never thought about it until there were some bumps along the road. So how can we be forward looking and look at some of the current policies and procedures that are there to make sure that it's smooth sailing, right, for all students, whether they have the California Dream Act application or they have the FAFSA application. I think it's also really important to be doing cross-departmental collaboration so that you can have an effective, efficient, and safe process to contact undocumented students. This is really important for incoming students to be like, hey, are you aware of the process? You might be like looking to see, hey, who's actually gone to a California high school or California community college, or finding out if people have adult schools, right? To then be able to say, are you aware of AB 540 or SB 68? Do you know that this is available? Did you know that we have services on campus for undocumented students? So that's kind of like working with the admissions on the pre-admissions, but then also from financial aid, what about the people that have a California Dream Act application, but don't have an affidavit on file? How could financial aid talk to admissions and talk to the students so that they're getting the pieces that they need so that they get their financial aid? The reverse is also true. How could admissions be looking and saying like, hey, we have affidavits for students, but I don't know, can you check to see if they actually have an affidavit on file for students who don't have citizenship status that would be listed, as well as looking for students that have Fafsa, like that have affidavits on file for AB 540 and have Fafsa. How does that all work out, right? So I think that there's many different things that individuals can think about when they're looking to build working relationships across departments and create a cross-departmental team. And this is key to really making sure that undocumented students are able to get the services that they need, get the aid that they deserve, and pay the proper fees if they meet the eligibility for AB 540. It's also really important, I think, that we consult regularly with undocumented student personnel. How does this email sound? You ask the undocumented student personnel. What advice would you have about the timing, about the way that we could talk to students? Is the, what's the best way for them to contact you? Would it be okay if we include your contact information in our financial aid or admissions email? So how can we work together to make sure that everybody's, getting the same information out and that students are receiving the same information, so they're not getting bumped around from office to office and they're getting 3 different answers at 3 different places, right? We want to make sure that that can streamline these pieces and support students even more. And this part, I think, is also something to think about. And actually, I want to just jump ahead. I put my slides in, excuse me, I'm going to just go right over here to here. This is just talking about communication across departments. My apologies for the confusing order of this, right? But this is really thinking about how can outreach better help students apply correctly? How can admissions actually make sure that the AB 540 status is awarded correctly? Financial aid is actually processing the California Dream Act application or scholarships, and that the bursar is actually exempting students from non-resident fees. How long does it take from the admissions office to actually get that information to the bursar so that their aid can get reduced, tuition can get reduced to the resident fees, not non-resident fees, so that when their financial aid comes out, it doesn't just get captured by, paying non-resident fees when they actually should be resident fees. And the other department that I think that's really important to be thinking about this in the cross-departmental collaboration is EOP&S or EOP or EOP&S, because they're also doing outreach, admissions. They have financial aid that they're providing through EOP or EOP&S grants. So really, it's like, how can we build this communication stronger? And then just, I did want to just go quickly a little bit on this. This is probably a little bit too much information, but I did want to touch a little bit on what Mary was talking about is the California Dream Act and residency for tuition purposes. So this is for students who have U visas, students who have TPS status, students who have DACA that are classified as residents. They have to actually meet the eligibility for AB 540. So if we're never looking into that query and being like, hey, who has a California Dream Act application on file, but is actually classified as a resident, we won't know that there's actually more Dream Act aid that could be sent out. So that means that they need to meet the eligibility for AB 540, and then the system will decide, like system meaning like either the CCCs or the CSU or the UC decide, can they just say, oh yes, we sign off that they meet the eligibility for AB 540, or do they actually need to go a reclassification process and kind of be unclassified as a resident to be classified as a non-resident so that they can then get their AB 540 status put in? That's school specific. We're trying to kind of clarify what that process would be overall, but definitely something to be thinking about. And then the last part really is just this Fafsa and residency for tuition purposes for students who have T visas and students who are citizens but parents who are undocumented. Students with T visas actually are able to receive aid through the California Dream Act, but they're applying through the Fafsa, just like students who are citizens who have AB 540 are, if they meet AB 540 and their citizens are applying through the Fafsa, but they should be eligible for both federal and state aid if they meet the eligibility for AB 540. So those are some of the pieces that I think are really important for us to be thinking about in terms of promising practices. Madeline did just put in a resource, which we'll be talking about in a little bit more detail later, though, that actually talks about the different promising practices that I talked about, because I know we talked about a bunch of them all at once, but I'm wondering if anybody has any questions, any comments, any thoughts about some of these different areas that I identified as promising practices for financial aid peeps. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a sec, see if anybody has any questions about those pieces, any ideas, any like, hey, we're already doing that. Are you excited? Did you get some new ideas? Information overload. Tell me something, okay? So more communications needed. Definitely got some new ideas. Yeah, Catherine saying, could other schools post how their admissions and financial aid work together to make it a smooth process? I want to bring some ideas back to my deans, right? So that is actually collaboration is key. The undocumented tiger team is essential, right? And if you're actually thinking about, Catherine, I'd actually say that it would be great for you to, we're having a workshop that is, or a breakout session that is specifically around cross-departmental collaboration. So you could go to that workshop and I bet you'd get some great ideas as well. But also someone saying we're working on cross-departmental collaboration and having a designated point person. So it makes me happy that we are on the right track. I think so. Like we've made some good choices. Yeah. So great. Anybody else? The last few momentitos of ideas. We just want to hear from you. We're excited that you're thinking about these different pieces. And Erica's saying, I work somewhat close with a resident specialist, and when she approves AB 540, she emails the student and includes me on the email. Then I give the student the information on the California Dream Act application, right? So how can just those easy extra CCs really make a difference so that the student not only is like, oh, you should talk to somebody in financial aid or you should talk to somebody in admissions, but they're right there on the email with you. So that part's exciting. That's a great idea, Erica. I'm glad to hear about that. And then someone's asking, should our undocumented students point person be our undocumented parent fed eligible student point person? I'm not sure that I understand that question, Kellyanne, so I need a little bit more clarity on those pieces, but I do think that it would be helpful that the individuals, that people who are working with undocumented students and undocumented parents should definitely be working together if they're not the same person. So we're going to have some more time for this moving forward, but I am excited that we're going to hear from some of our amazing colleagues. But for right now, we're going to take a short break. We know that was a lot of information, a lot of pieces coming through. We really thank your appreciation and attention. It's 11:08. So actually, let's just take, we'll come back at 11:15. So we will be back at 11:15, and we have a lot of amazing stuff in store for you. So we look forward to seeing you in about the next 5 or 6 minutes. We're going to come back in about 1 minute. Everybody can start coming back. We're excited that you're here. We're going to be going into our next portion, which is promising practices in action. So you heard me talking in theory about some of those promising practices, and I gave some examples, but now you're going to be able to hear directly from your colleagues within financial aid, undocumented student services, and the California Student Aid Commission about specific promising practices, and not only like what the promising practice is, but how they got to where they are today. What are some of the powerful insights that they can share? Learn some good tricks of the trade, and you'll also be able to ask questions. So I'm going to go through and explain the 5 different breakout groups that are available. Then you can be able to choose your breakout group. So we'll go over those instructions as we go. But the first breakout group that we're going to be having is going to talk about specifically about effective websites and creating a steps for enrolling between admissions, undocumented student services, and financial aid. And this is going to be led by the fabulous Maria Gutierrez. She is the Dream Center coordinator at Chabot College. That's going to be group number 1, breakout group 1. So effective websites and steps for enrolling. The second breakout group is going to be resolving common errors with the California Dream Act application. And that's going to be led by the illustrious John Waldrep, who's from the outreach and training team from the California Student Aid Commission. So number 2, resolving common errors with the California Dream Act application. The third breakout group that we're going to be having is really digging into this cross-departmental collaboration. And that's going to be led by the exciting Gladys Puente and jumping Joe Avila they're both at Sierra College, and they have built this beautiful system between admissions, financial aid, undocumented student services, and outreach. And they're going to talk to you about how they got to where they are today in that process so that you can help to try to emulate that yourselves. So number 3, cross-departmental collaboration. The fourth breakout group that we're going to have is really talking about that award visibility that I was mentioning and the use of hold. So how can you make sure that an award is shown, but that the hold is put into place? Or as somebody else was talking about in the chat, how can you make sure that, hey, you need your affidavit, let's put that right onto your portal. Catherine Custodio, the fantabulous Catherine Custodio, who is currently at USF, but formerly worked at San Francisco State as a financial aid advisor with undocumented students, is going to be talking about their process for making sure that students can see their holds and see their award at the same time. So that's number 4. And then group number 5, the breakout group number 5 is going to be using Csac data and tools. And this is going to be from our very esteemed Javier Arguello, who was speaking us to before about the award status report. So you can definitely think about that as well. And these are actually the choices that you can do. So you can choose your breakout group, and that is number 1 is the effective websites and steps for enrolling. 2, resolving common errors with CADA. 3, cross-departmental collaboration. 4, award visibility and use of holds. And 5, using Csac data and tools. So you should be able to, if you haven't updated Zoom, you should be able to actually go ahead and look those over, and choose your own choose your own breakout group. If not, you can just chat Madeline or myself, or Madeline, and she will assign you one. So you can just look for Madeline 5 period Madeline. And then somebody's asking that we would show who those are again. So I'll quickly go over those again, but and then we're going to transition to moving into the group. So number 1 will be Maria Gutierrez talking about websites from Chabot College. Number 2 is resolving common errors with the CADA with John Waldrep from Csac. 3, cross-departmental collaboration with Gladys and Joe from Sierra College. 4, award visibility and the use of holds from Catherine Custodio talking about the processes at SF State. And 5, using Csac data and tools, which is from Csac. Now, if you can go ahead and actually choose your breakout group, we hope that you will, because we see lots of these coming through. And we're going to try to put you into your breakout group as quickly as we can. Please go ahead and choose your breakout group if you can.
So if you're not being automatically added, just give us a second and I'll see who's still left behind to add you manually to the group. You should be getting a notification on your screen. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna go through some of the names of if you're not being added yet. I think for folks who still don't have one, give me another minute. Nancy, if you could go back to the slide with all of them.
This is on the slide. Is there
Oh,
on all of
sorry.
them?
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Doing good, Madeline. Keep going. I'm trying to find them too. If you're still here, if you could actually just go ahead and put your number again. We're just looking through and trying to find people's numbers. So please let us know if you're. Thanks for doing that, you guys. Appreciate it. We're trying to get you in there as quick as we can. Gilda, Aurelia, Arcelia, Lorena, Kyle, please put your number back in the chat of which one you'd like us to put you in.
Nancy, I think I can, I don't know if you want to check on the rooms.
Okay,
I think I can handle the rest of it. Yeah,
Thank you.
if folks haven't put their number in the chat yet, please do that so that I could assign you to the breakout room. And then if somebody did just join, we are doing breakout rooms right now. The topics are on the screen. If you can put the number that you'd like to be on in the chat. If folks would like to join a breakout room, let me put the thing again on the chat. Okay, no worries if you need to jump off. Anybody else here would like to go in a breakout room? And if you can't see the breakout rooms because you're on the phone, I can also read you the options. Just let me know.
Yeah, if you could put me in a breakout room, please. Sorry.
Which one would you like to be in?
Whichever one is fine.
Okay. Anybody else want to go into a breakout room?
Hi, Madeline. I had to take a call real quick, but I'm back.
Okay, would you like to go in a breakout room? I think we are less than 10 minutes, but I put the options in the chat.
Okay, let me look at it. And then, yeah, I don't mind. Sorry about that.
No, it's
I'm at the center. We're short-staffed since Michelle left us. But we're trying to do the best that we can. But I also know this training is important for me. I'm still learning. Let me see. All the above, but I think the one that might be more helpful right now is number 2.
2? Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm. If you got kicked out of a breakout room, let me know and I can re-put you in one. Or if you're just joining us for the first time today too, we are in breakout rooms right now. And the options, we have about 5 more minutes, I think. Yeah, we're doing breakout rooms for another 5 minutes. Here's the options if you'd like to jump into another one or you were kicked out of one. Or I think you also should be able to choose your breakout room option if you can do that. Hi all, so I think we're still doing breakout rooms for a couple more minutes. Feel free to let me know if you'd like to go back to one, or you could just hang out in this room until we get everybody back. Oh, I realized I was on mute. But folks are coming back, so we're just gonna wait until everybody comes back. I think we have about another minute left in the countdown timer. think folks are slowly coming back. We're like at 30 seconds.
Do we still have time for the Jamboard, Madeline?
I think so, yeah, we should have time.
Can you do that?
Sure.
Or I can do that. That looked like I'll do it. Welcome back, everyone. We're glad that you're here. We hope that your sessions went really well. Thank you to our amazing presenters, Javier, John, Joe, Maria, Gladys, and Catherine. I hope that you got lots of great information. We actually could have been there all day, right? There's so much more that we were able to, we just kind of got a chance to dig into some of the areas. So I'm hopeful that we'd be able, this is not going to be the first and only California Dream Act Bootcamp. I'd love to see how we can build on this knowledge and extend it further. But a great thank you to all of our amazing presenters. And we hope that you're able to get some great information from them. We will ask you now that you're coming back in, as people are just kind of jumping back into the space, we have a few minutes and we're asking you to go ahead and click on that Jamboard link that Madeline put to actually just be able to go ahead and tell us what excited you most from what was shared today. What can you bring back to your campus and kind of like what's possible moving forward? I think that these are some really exciting opportunities for us to be thinking about in terms of using that Jamboard. So I'm just going to go on there and see what people are writing. You can just use a Post-it if you haven't done it yet to write your answer. So really kind of like what excited you most about what was shared? Did you hear some great thing that some other schools doing? You know, like what can you take back to your campus? And then what can you actually go ahead and think about what's possible moving forward? So taking back to your campus, I'm like, today I'm going to go back and do this. Or just something that actually excited you the most, right? So please take a few minutes to go ahead and write your Post-it. You can, if you go over here on the left-hand side, you don't have to use that Post-it that's there. You can just click on a Post-it and be like, wow, that, you know, like that status award report, that was so exciting for me. I never knew about that, right? And so then I can just save it and boom, there it is, my status award report. So I'm seeing like people talking about opportunities to connect between departments to build student trust, right? That was really exciting, definitely. Status, you know, like thinking about creating an online landing page for students at their school. Someone else is saying, you know, like a checklist for the website for new students really helps them out, right? So creating a checklist. So please go ahead. We'll just give you a couple more minutes to put this in. So a lot of people are excited about that extract, Javier. So thank you so much for bringing that. More tools to become a stronger ally. The Dream Act chatbot checklist, right? Super exciting. So John was dropping some knowledge about that bot that you can use. And then so that's some of the things that people are really excited about. The Csac data dashboard, right? Super exciting. I'm all excited about that too. Javier someone was saying they didn't even know that that even existed. So really exciting about that. Working with their recruitment team to be able to work with undocumented students. So that's really exciting. Other people are saying in terms of like what they might be able to bring back to their campus. Maybe haven't gotten there yet. We're just still thinking about what's possible moving forward. But I think these are some really exciting ideas. Information to approve their checklist. The checklist for the CADA applicants who are missing AB 540 residency status, right? So lots of ideas, more collaboration between financial aid and admissions. So really excited to see these ideas being shared. And again, a big thank you to our fabulous presenters who were talking about like how those promising practices are actually put into place. So we'll give you a minute or two, ideas to simplify the process, right? Using a checklist. And so all of these are great ideas and learning what other schools are doing, right? I've really seen that that's just been so helpful for one school to figure out what another school is doing. And then it can be like, hey, so-and-so is doing this, and you can use some of their procedures to make sure that you're actually on point with what it is that you want to do. So is anybody if you want to jump in and just share something, feel free to go ahead. just another minute or two to put this information here, but really grateful for all of you for participating. A couple of shout outs for the different groups. Excitement about that. So we only have a couple more minutes today, so I'll take a peek back over there in a little bit, but we also just wanted to let you know that we do have promising practices for financial aid counselors. This is hot off the press. This is on our Immigrants Rising website today. It talks about some of the specific tactics that we talked about. So if you're like, wow, that was a lot of information, you can definitely look at the PowerPoints we'll be sharing. You can look at the recordings that we have. But if you'd like all that information just in one place, you can just go to the Immigrants Rising website, and we have Madeline threw that in the chat. We can throw that in the chat again. It gives you an introduction and just talks about the role of financial aid, some of the concrete steps that can be used. Also things that you can do just to kind of get started. So I'm just going to throw that up over here, and you can just go to our Immigrants Rising page, download that. And this just kind of shows you like, what are some of the things about getting started that we talked about? Always saying FAFSA or DREAM, including the DREAM Act and outreach materials, website presence, highlighting data protection. We didn't talk about that a lot today, but that's something definitely important for students to know that their information is safe. How can we support students who are the mixed status students who might be citizens, but their parents are undocumented? And then once you've got some of that underhand, then how can you really take it to the next level by identifying a point person, encourage departmental trainings, showing financial aid awards, collaborating between departments, and then really supporting students who have U visas and TPS. We also have some great resources, both from Csac and from Immigrants Rising, and then some ideas about putting this into place. And we do have some acknowledgements. Some of those individuals are here today, Javier and Catherine, who helped make this guide so much stronger. But thanks to all of you financial aid counselors from across the state and undocumented student support personnel who are actually going to be helping this get into the hands of more financial aid counselors across the California colleges and universities, public and private schools. And then I'm going to, we really would like to know from you how today's session went. We'd like you to please complete our short evaluation. And because we just want to know, how could we do this better? What's available? What would you like in the future? I did see someone saying we want more breakout groups. So I definitely think that would be some great opportunities moving forward to have more breakout groups. But please go ahead and complete our short evaluation. And everybody who completes their evaluation and includes their email will get a I Support Undocumented Students email graphic and a certificate of completion. So not only do we want you to fill out the evaluation because we want to make sure that we know how to improve this, but we also want to make sure that you can get this really cool I Support Undocumented Students email graphic and a certificate of completion that's there. So we also want to give you, I'm just going to give you a minute or two. I'm just going to stop talking and actually ask you to do that evaluation if you can right now. It's hard for me to be quiet, but it's a couple of minutes. Please don't leave yet. We have some more information we'd like you to share with you. It's a quick eval. And we'll be sending that in the follow-up email as well. So hopefully you're finishing up that evaluation. I think that was a whole minute that I was quiet, although it might not have been that long. Definitely want to make sure that you fill that out. And also really just encouraging you, please make your support visible. That little email signature can do a lot when we get back in person. For those of you that are already back in person, putting up some kind of sign that lets people know that you support undocumented students so that students don't have to come out to you. They actually can hear from you. Like they can get some visible sign that you actually know about and support undocumented students. I think those are really important. For individuals who are actually just thinking about, hey, I love the way that Immigrants Rising does their workshops. We want to learn more. We are actually going to be doing some AB 540 SP 68 learning labs on April 8th and 15th from 10 to 11:30. Again, our main focus for this is going to be admissions and residency staff, as well as undocumented student support staff, college access staff, high school advisors, and ask you to just dig deeper into untangling some of the common challenges and developing an action plan to really streamline the affidavit process. And you can just register at bit.ly/AB540-labs. Madeline just threw that into the chat. And before we get to the end, I did actually just want to give the opportunity to, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. I'd love for Javier and John just to finish up with the last couple of minutes words of closure, if you'd like. We want to thank you for your participation and want to give you some time to say something as well.
Wow, heavy responsibility. Thank you. So I'm just going to say very quickly, I remember the first time I met Nancy in person, and we were both presenting at the same, we've bumped into each other many, many times at different events. And I was in this room and she rushed in and it was all energy and all everything. And I said, man, this lady is really passionate about what she does. And she is. And fortunately for us, we've been able to collaborate quite a bit over the years, but I will not forget my introduction to Nancy in that first conference when she flew in, arms flailing, excited, jumping up and down, super motivated. And you know, when somebody cares and they're invested, you can really tell. And I think that's a good lesson for all of us, you know. Show that you care, show you're invested, be enthusiastic about what you're doing. Make sure these kiddos understand that, you know, that you're there for them. And when they feel like that, they're much more likely to in turn, you know, jump in and take that ride with you.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Yeah, no, the energy, Nancy, that you put out is infectious. And I think everyone here, I mean, that's the whole reason why we're involved in financial aid, right? Once we catch that financial aid bug, we just kind of stick around because the work is very valuable, very meaningful. So I appreciate it, really everyone's interest in attending these trainings here. It really shows everyone's dedication, you know, towards this topic here. I will leave one piece of homework for everyone. The Csac Listserv. I mean, that is really the main point of communication that we use between Csac and everyone out there in the field. If you haven't had a chance to sign up for the Csac Listserv, we do have some very important communications that are coming up here fairly soon. I mean, we always do, but you know, there is some very important piece of information that is going to be coming down the pipeline, especially as we go into a new application cycle, right, where there's going to be some changes to the whole methodology of financial aid. So make sure that you do register for the listserv. I think it'll be in some of the resources that we'll send out. So I will leave you that with that homework there. And again, just thanking everyone for your time out, carving out some time to join us here today. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Javier. Madeline, what are your words?
Oh, I think I just want to appreciate everyone for taking the time to attend these sessions. We know that Zoom is not the kindest platform, and we did do two-hour sessions on your work days. So thank you all for your continued commitment. And I know there's a lot of excitement in general for these two sessions. And just also special shout out to the other facilitators, Gladys, Joe, Catherine, Maria from the Breakout Rooms for also sharing their amazing work in their campus. And we hope to see folks again. This is like our first boot camp. I would want to do this in person. Seems like a different kind of space, right? But I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Madeline. And yes, thank you to our amazing presenters. Thank you to all of you, right, for taking the time to actually go through and spend this time with us today. I do want to share our contact information for ourselves, from Immigrants Rising, as well as from the California Student Aid Commission. Again, thanks so much to the Student Aid Commission for being here with us, and then also amazing work from our other colleagues that help facilitate those sessions as well. So if you'd like their contact information, we will be sharing this through all of the, we'll be sending out a recording, we'll be sending out the PowerPoint slides again, and We hope that you please fill out that evaluation. Madeline, maybe you could throw that one more time in the chat just to make sure that you get your certificate of completion and also that you get your cool little email sticker. So thanks so much to everybody. Please sign up for the listserv if you have not yet from Csac. And thanks to the Immigrants Rising team behind the scenes that made this possible. Okay, thanks everybody. Hope you have a great day. And yay, our first boot camp is complete.